Good morning, everybody. Make sure I'm on here. And can you hear me okay? Yeah, it's coming through. When do the Chiefs play? Oh, I got plenty of time. Okay, cool. So like sometimes if I go long, you guys check out by like 11:15 and you're already in sports mode. So I got plenty of time. That's good. If you don't know me, I'm Jeremy. I'm one of the pastors here. Work with our students and our creative team primarily, and right now I'm doing most of the teaching. But that's not for terribly too much longer, because this week they just moved up here. Is the pastor that we just voted on a couple weeks ago, or well, I guess it was probably a month ago at this point. Pierce and Alex, their whole family is here. This is their first week here visiting. Yes, give them a warm welcome. We're glad. Well, Alex just left. She doesn't want to be here anymore. Pierce is in here. Now they have two young boys, and I'm sure she's tending one of them right now. We're glad to have you guys. Glad you're here, part of our family. So you'll see him start making this transition here before terribly long. But until then, you got to stick with me. So to open it up, I'm like I said, I'm a youth pastor, so my mind is childish, to put it the easiest way, I guess. Okay. Ever since kind of the conception of superheroes, they've kind of taken control of us. There's been a lot of interest in them. The comic books growing up, whatever it may be, and now my generation has had the Avengers movies and like the whole build up to that. And there's always the debate between DC and Marvel, and I don't know which side you guys are on, but Marvel is clearly the winner, wherever you land. But a lot of the obsession with superheroes stems from the desire that I think all of us have, or innate within us, is like, man, it'd be really cool to have some sort of superpower. It'd be really cool to have that. And so, in that spirit, I want you guys to talk about it. And I promise we're going somewhere with it. I promise, okay? I say that every week because it's a weird question. But for just a moment, I want you to turn people around you, go across the aisle, whatever it may be, and talk about this question right here. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? What would it be? They're going to put some music on. Take just a moment if you're online, chat. But for just a moment, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? All right, that should be easy enough. We'll wrap that up. Thank you, guys. You know, each week I feel like you guys are getting better at this. When we first started doing this, you wanted nothing to do with it. And now you're getting used to it. And that's good. That's a good thing. So thank you for interacting. What kind of things did we have out there? What would the superpowers be? Invisible. I hear you, introvert. What else? What'd you say? Fly. Telekinesis. I don't even know what that is, but it sounds cool. Oh, reading people's thoughts. Is that it? Yeah. Oh, okay, I got you. Oh, yes. Okay, I got you. What else? Take away pain. That'd be nice. That'd be really nice. Mine personally, and once I say this, you can't take it. You made your decision. This is mine. I get to be the superhero. Teleportation. That's mine. Anybody else say that? I guess we're going to have a battle of who gets to be the teleporter. You get to travel without the travel, and that's the best part. Like, you get to go to places without. And so it's like, hey, this afternoon we're gonna go to the beach, whatever. That'd be kind of fun. Anyway, that'd be mine. But beyond like the what of the superpower, like what superpower would it be? There's probably a why behind that. Why you want the superpower? Do you want to be the hero that do you want to be the hero that just saves everyone and is the kind of benevolent leader that everyone loves and you can save people? You're Superman, right? Superwoman, whatever it may be. Or maybe you're more of the mega mind type. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with that movie? It's fantastic. Maybe you're the mega mind type, where in the midst of your feelings of melancholy, you would use it to sow chaos. Some of you get that reference. You would use it to sow chaos. I don't know what you would use a superpower for. Probably if I was a teenager, it'd be the latter. It'd be chaos. But as a kid, the superpower that I wanted the most was this guy right here. Now, I was a scrawny little dork, like tiny little thing, and I got bullied a lot my entire way through school. And eventually, I grew, but I didn't ever fill out, clearly. So the height it didn't really change a whole lot. But this was the thought of, this is what I'm going to do to my bullies. They won't like me when I'm angry. The big guy's going to come out, And as a kid, you have this like a thing in your mind of that, if I think hard enough, I can be this. And so he just got mad enough that he just became green and became his person. So they'd make me mad, and I'd try, and then I'd fart, and I'd be embarrassed, and it didn't really get any better. I'm not the Hulk, surprise. I'm not that. And now, as I've gotten older, Spider-Man became my favorite because I'm like, I can just web their mouth shut and walk away. That's great. That'd be best. But this was it for me. This was the goal. This was the dream. And I bet for many of us, this is what you think of when you think of anger. You won't like me when I'm angry. Maybe you've even said those words. It's loud. It's destructive. It's yelling. This is what you think of. We think, or even maybe a younger generation. You think of this guy from Inside Out. You think of who he was, the anger emotion. And maybe it's that guy. Maybe this is what you've seen in your 3-year-old. Maybe you've seen the angry eye, you've seen the Hulk. Maybe this is what you grew up with. This is what you saw at your home. This is your mom and dad. This is what you grew up with. Maybe that's you at home. I don't know what it is, but this is typically what we have in mind. Or maybe that's not you, and you think, well, I don't really struggle with anger, because that's anger. But this isn't all that anger looks like. And so that's what James is going to help us understand today and challenge us all in today. And so if you're ready, I want you to meet me in James 1 is where we're going to be. James 1 is page 977 in those hardback black Bibles in the seats in front of you, if you want to use one of those. If you don't have a Bible at home, please take that as our gift to you, but it's 977 in those. Anywhere anyone else's Bible, that's probably not going to line up. But James 1, and there's no shame in using the table of contents, by the way. None at all. But we are, for anyone who hasn't been here, even if you have been here, here's your quick review. We're in this journey through the book of James. It's heavily influenced by James's bigger brother. His name was Jesus. Maybe you've heard of him. He was his half-brother. But James is writing to this kind of early church. We're talking like early Acts church. They'd just gotten spread out because of persecution. And wherever these people found themselves, they were maligned, and they were pushed away, and they were even being murdered. So this is what he's writing into. And so the first section is all about their situation at hand. It's about suffering. He's like, when you're going through it, there can be good gifts, there can be all these different things. We just need to shift our perspective a bit. So he's talking about their situation at hand. In the second part of chapter 1, which are really still kind of opening remarks in a lot of ways, James primarily focuses on one specific part of the Christian's body. It's not the heart, it's not the head, but James focuses on the Christian's feet. Now, James is giving us what's been called the shoes of Christianity. He knows that how we live and what we do is just as important as what we say we believe. And where those things don't line up, where our words and our actions don't line up, we're living this fractured life. We're showing the world a fractured picture of Jesus and his kingdom that he's bringing. And if you're here or you're watching online, I don't know all of your spiritual situations or your journeys that you're on right now, but this has likely been a big part of your frustration with the church and maybe why you want nothing to do with it. It's not Jesus, it's not even necessarily the Bible, but if you track it back to why you have an aversion towards church or Christianity, it's typically me. It's Christians. And so please know that if that's you, us at NewStory, we're fed up with that too. Now, we're not perfect in this gathering that we call it. If you're an owner here, a member here, we're not perfect in that. And we're never going to be close, but this is why we're in James. It's a book of wisdom for followers of Jesus that is geared towards helping Christians with their faith, with their works, on the journey towards making those things whole and lining up. So again, if you're not a Christian here or watching online, welcome. We're glad that you're here. We expect for you to be here. Today in the series is really focused on Christians, people that say, my yes is down with Jesus, and focused on mending that fracture in our lives between what we say and what we say we believe and what we do. And I believe if you're not a follower of Jesus, there will still be parts in here that are applicable to you and apply to your life, give you some insight, at least if nothing else, to Christians. So with all that in mind, I want us to read in James chapter 1, verse 19 and through 21. Look there with me. James 1, 19 and 21, through 21. My dear brothers and sisters, again talking to the Christians that are kind of scattered about, it says, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Why? Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Verse 21, therefore get rid of all moral filth and evil that is so present, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. So the verses to the end of this chapter, from 19 till the end of chapter 1, James is setting up really the rest of the letter for us. He's addressing three things. First, he's saying, as we're getting into what I'm going to talk about to you guys, the first thing is this: be willing to listen. Be willing to listen, especially when something challenges you, and that's today. And then second, he says, listen, I don't want to spit into the wind here, so y'all, you need to be willing to do what you hear and not just be so satisfied with just listening. Because I'm going to say some things, and you need to apply it. And then he also says, I want to show you what it really means to follow Jesus. And that's all to set up what he's going to bring up through 2 through 5. Did you know there's so much in James? There's a ton in here. And I've loved studying through it, but I'm looking forward to walking through it, revealing how we're living fractured and how that can be mended. So what James is doing here in 19 through 21 is not just giving us a PSA. It's like, the more you know, we're just going to read it, we're going to hear it, and we're going to be good. This is not just a suggestion. James is talking about that church cuss word, obedience. This is what he's talking about. And maybe that's a little too explicit for church. Here, okay, we'll do that. We don't like talking about obedience. But James knows that action must follow our belief. Apply that wherever you want. Action must follow your belief. If it doesn't, do you really believe what you think you believe? If you say you believe something, your actions should follow that. And if it doesn't, what do you really believe? Think about that as we continue to walk through. So 19 through 21, what we just read, he asks a very specific question. Simply this: how do you respond when you get challenged? He's asking them because he's about to challenge them on a lot of stuff. How do you respond when you get challenged? So you could even say, when things don't go your way, when you get offended, when that kind of anger starts welling up within you and you're like, I don't like this feeling, how do you respond to that? And James says how we respond matters, because there are ways that we respond that feel right, that feel natural, that feel good, the ways that we respond when that happens. But they produce something in us, and they can produce something in other people that cause more fractures in our world than are mended. And so he's saying this is not a suggestion that are going to be followers of Jesus. He says God has a standard for us to live up to, a standard for us to obey if we're going to be his follower, and it's this standard right here. Be slow to speak, be quick to listen, and be slow to anger. Now, even though there are 40 authors of this book, the Bible speaks with one voice. And if you have questions on that, let's talk through it. Written over 1,500 years, multiple different continents, all kinds of different things. And it speaks with one voice, meaning a consistent theme through it. It's not contradicting itself all over the place. And so I say that because it means that other writings in this book can inform how we understand our God and how we understand the things that we're called to apply as his followers. So James is not the only one that speaks on this issue of anger and how we respond in these situations. Any guesses on who else might have talked about this? Yeah, that's the Sunday school answer. That's easy. Jesus, yes. Any guesses on where he might have talked about this? You guys are getting it now. I love it. We've been talking about this the whole time, that James took a lot of influence from the Sermon on the Mount. He's been applying that into, this is just kind of, James's book is applying the Sermon on the Mount, which is a message that Jesus gave, Matthew 5 through 7. But I want to show it to you. In the early part of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says this: you've heard that it was said to the people long ago, you shall not murder. And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. And we can amen that. But this is something Jesus would do frequently in his teaching. You've heard it said. You know what the kind of standard in our world is. Now let me tell you about my kingdom that's a little bit different than this. And so he follows it up. And he says, but I tell you that anyone who's angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. You read that, and Jesus is likening anger to murder. You're like, yo, Jesus, chill. Like, I'm just mad. I'm not murdering anyone. That's not what's happening. But like I say, don't take the emotion away from something like this. Jesus is teaching a crowd, and when he says that, that's a pretty heavy thing to throw out there. It's like, I know you guys know the law that says don't murder, but did you know when you're angry, you do the same thing? It's a huge thing to drop. And so Jesus is saying that there is a type of anger that does not produce behavior fitting for people that represent him. He's talking about what would be known as a sinful anger. And then Paul, who's a first century leader and influencer in the church, he planted a lot of churches, and he wrote a letter to a church in the city of Ephesus. That's our book, Ephesians. And so he's writing to the specific church, and he says something very interesting. He says, actually, in your anger, don't sin. Say, now I'm getting confused, man. Because Jesus said I'm a serial killer, and Paul says it's okay to be angry. So which is it? See, Paul is simply clarifying, he's clarifying this, that there is an anger that can produce wickedness and an anger that can produce goodness from us. Paul's doing something very important here. He is disentangling anger from sin. To be angry doesn't mean that you're sinning. You're doing something wrong or being wicked or anything like that. He's helping us to see that you can be angry in such a way that you're not just shooting from the hip and sinning, but you can be angry in a way that's actually redemptive and good. See, anger is a great motivator. It's actually one of the most powerful motivators and motivational emotions that we feel. But the question is this here. What is anger motivating us to? Is it motivating us to wicked and hurts, or is it motivating us to good? Is it motivating us to redemption, or is it motivating us to destruction? See, redemptive anger or righteous anger, maybe you've heard that phrase before. Righteous anger is what would lead us to doing things like fighting injustice. Where we see it, where we see injustice, where we see something wrong, it should rightfully anger us and motivate us to make this world look as much like heaven as possible, which is what his followers are called to do. It's the kind that would have us feed the hungry. It's the kind of anger that would have us free the trafficked and resource the single parent. It's the kind that would have us defend the rights of image bearers and around us, whether we agree with them or not. It's the kind of anger, this righteous anger, that would have us stand for the rights of the unborn and the dignity of the oppressed, the kind of the oppressed, and it's the kind that would have us set allegiance to the side for a moment and weep over the loss of innocent Palestinian and Israeli lives both. Be angry and do not sin means that there is a way in which I can steward my anger for something redemptive and good. We allow that anger that we feel when we see injustice to move us toward the redemptive justice of the King. That looks like his kingdom. But where we are wrong and where we are offended and challenged in a way we don't like, we get angry too. Not just when we see something wrong, but when it happens to us, when we're wronged, we get angry too. And more often than not, it motivates us not towards goodness, but wickedness. And Jesus likens that anger to murder. You got a problem with that? Take it up with Jesus. This type of anger kills a person's confidence. It kills a person's esteem. This type of anger kills the relationship. Now you're likely visualizing the Hulk, outbursts, loud yelling. You're likely picturing that, but there is another side to this that's just as consequential. There is a type of anger that where something happens to me, I'm not going to yell, I'm not going to burst out, I'm not going to make myself really big, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say, okay, noted. And you just go dark. And you stop returning texts and calls. And you just kind of back out of the relationship. That's murder too. And you're not dealing with it. Now, most who know me know I'm a fairly measured person. I except for when my teams are winning, I'm known to have outbursts then. But I'm not. I'm not an angry person. Not naturally geared that way. But I'm painfully guilty of this. Embarrassingly guilty of silent assassination. See, James knows. Don't forget, James is human. He's writing this as just a pastor. And he knows that he feels this present in his own life, and he knows that we can be kind of hell-bent on the same way, headed towards destruction. And so notice, he doesn't say, get rid of all the anger. He says, be slow to it. Why would he say that? Because James knows that anger is like a fire. That within its boundaries, around in your fireplace, in its boundaries, it's safe. It can be a good thing. But the moment those boundaries are removed, it spreads and just causes absolute destruction. Like, don't miss this. We can be angry at the right things and respond in a way that causes more damage. We can be angry about the right things and respond in a way that just makes it worse. We tend to justify our own behavior in those moments because we feel like it's the right thing to go off about. I should be mad. I should be yelling about this, or it's whatever our volatile culture decides is okay to be outraged and upset about right now. But left unchecked, here's the trajectory of how this goes. It starts with anger, and that anger grows within inside us, and we get fearful of other people. You get fearful of things around us, and then it grows to a suspicion that we have, and we're always, everyone's acting sus, and I'm not, like, it makes you very uncomfortable. And with the eyes of our heart kind of just focused on suspicion, the rest of our lives kind of follow that way. And conspiracy theories becoming more mainstream should not be surprising to us. Because we're angry, we're fearful, and we're suspicious. And suspicion leads to cynicism in our life. And where cynicism is at your core, don't be surprised if it goes into all other areas of your life. Like, based off of some of our timelines on social media, we are far down this lane. You're crusty, and you're angry, and you blame everyone else for your problems, and you question everyone's motivations, and you give no one the benefit of the doubt, but you need it for yourself, but you give it to no one. And your negativity continually pushes people away, and now you wonder, and you find yourself lonely. Like, why would I be lonely? I'm always right. Tell me, does this sound like the full life that Jesus says is possible for us to have? Does this sound like the full life that Jesus said should be a characterization of his people? Does this sound like a representative of any type of kingdom that you would want to be a part of? What do you think unbelievers are thinking? See, that's the overall thrust of this whole book of James, is that we are living in this fractured way. And anger is a big part of it. So the question is, what can guard us from this? This natural trajectory that comes up in our life, and left unchecked, this is where you're headed. I'm just going to be honest with you. This is where you are headed. So what can guard us from this natural trajectory? Well, he gives us two things in the passage we looked at today. He says this: be quick to listen, slow to speak. He also says, humbly remind yourself of what Jesus did and said. He says, look at how Jesus lived his life in various circumstances and remind yourself that this is the standard. Stop comparing yourself to other people, because you can always find someone that's worse than you. And you're going to look better and you're going to feel good. But they're not the standard. Look to how Jesus lived his life and responded. And so I want you to look at your life for a moment. What do you do when you're angry? I'll tell you what you do when you're angry. You're quick to speak and slow to listen. Because you've heard enough. I don't need to hear it anymore. Does this sound familiar? See, the thing is, we inherently know that that's unhealthy for us. You maybe have grown up in a home that you saw that. We see it online. We see it in our House of Representatives, or whatever political realm you want to put it in. Our leaders that we look to, we see this. We know that this type of being quick to speak and slow to listen is not helpful for us. But then we hear, that this kind of stress is not good for your health, and you need to just let it out, and you need to rage. Oh, actually, in case you need to set it another way, Carol Tavris, who's a social psychologist, she said this. Some will tell you that it's always good to express your anger so it won't clog your arteries in relationships. But if your expressed rage causes another person to shoot you, it doesn't matter if you die with very healthy arteries. So maybe we shouldn't express everything. Maybe it's not the healthiest thing. We know that these responses are naturally unhealthy for us. And so when he says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, this is conversational language. And most often when it comes to our anger and we are offended and things don't go our way, the best way, I'll tell you right now, the best way to deal with your anger that you're feeling is to have a conversation with someone. These type of things also guard against us growing in fear and cynicism. Because when you're eyeball to eyeball with people, you guys know the bravery that comes behind a keyboard. We will say some crazy, okay, we'll take it off the keyboard thing. What type of things do you say to people when you're driving in a car behind them? If you were walking on the sidewalk behind them, would you say that? That's what I thought. Okay. We wouldn't do that because they can hear us. And there's life there. This is what I'm saying. Like, James says, humbly remind yourself of what Jesus did and said. And here's what I'll tell you. He was gentle. In fact, some of your translations, I don't know what translation you're using, use the word meekness in there, which is gentleness. And Jesus was gentle. But honestly, this is why we always want to compare ourselves to other people and our behavior to other people instead of comparing what we do to Jesus, because we know what that means for us. It means I'm going to have to take off some of this filth that I have on me that I'm not quite ready to set aside yet. And so when we finally do, when we're like come face to face, we look in the mirror and say, okay, I'm angry. Well, then we go to the Bible and we try to justify it. Be like, well, Jesus flipped tables. And next time I go over to my parents' house and they're spouting off about some stuff I don't like, I'm just going to flip that table on them. Because Jesus would, come here, I love you enough to tell you this, you're not Jesus. It's far too over-applied to situations that Jesus is not upset about his parents spouting off some nonsense, okay? We far too over-apply that. But in general, Jesus was gentle. And for you, what are you gentle with? You're gentle with things you value, right? You're gentle with a newborn baby. You're gentle with your shoe collection. I don't know what you have. I don't know what you're gentle with or what's valuable to you. But when I pop off and I'm quick to speak and slow to listen, what I'm communicating to that person is I don't value you. And we may not even be screaming and yelling, guys. Again, it's not just Hulk. But even our dismissive, distant responses say the same thing. I don't value you. In fact, Jesus would say, I'm essentially committing murder in my heart. In real talk, some of us have assassinated the president about a dozen times. Some of us have killed our boss plenty of times, or our coach, or our teacher, or your neighbor who will not trim the trees over their side of the fence that are coming over. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and humbly remind yourself of what Jesus did and said, because he was gentle. And for the Christians here, more than anything else, speaking specifically to the Christians here, we should be quicker to listen and slower to speak when it comes to what God is trying to tell us. Goes back to that word, that cuss word, obedience. If we truly want to be wise people, we need to humbly accept the words so kindly written down for us that we're reading right now. And so please, genuinely take stock of your life. What place are you giving to the Word of God in your life right now? Are you listening? Like genuinely, I know what the church answer is. What place are you giving the Word of God in your life right now? Even when the Bible does not give you permission to pop off on people. Even when it challenges your most deeply held traditions. Are you still willing to listen? What place does God's Word have in your life? Or does it have any place? How many of you guys watch award shows? Anybody? Yeah, that's what I expected. No one watches them. That's why the viewership's way. Well, actually, most people watch the one where Will Smith. Everyone watched that one. But award shows have a specific allotted TV time. They have to get done within this certain period. And so as people give up and they're thanking their grandma and their second aunt and their third cousin and every person who's involved in the process, and they start to go over their time, they're like, we haven't a lot of time, you're starting to go over. What do? They start to play him off, right? They start to play music, and they play him off. Does that sound familiar? Like that's what they'll do. See, there's a danger there. You can bring it back down. There's a danger in there that this is how we treat our God. Yeah, I'm trying to talk, guys. Come on. There's a danger, though, and this is how we treat our God. Actually, let me show you what we often do. This is how it goes. We'll sit down. We'll want to listen to Him. We want to get to know our Bible. We want to get to know God and allow His Word to change us. And so we sit down and we begin to read. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become. Okay, guys, it's not funny anymore. Hold on. Let me get through this. Okay, let's start over. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Okay. You get the point I'm trying to make here? Let me make it really clear then, I guess. Maybe that's not super clear. What happens in our lives is when we finally get around to opening our Bibles, it's as if we're saying to God, Lord, speak to me, make it really clear, but you only got 60 seconds, because then my mind is going to drift and I'm on to the next thing in my agenda. We got to move on. You only have these 5 minutes. You only have till my train makes it to the next station or a bus makes it to the next stop. This is all you got. And anything longer than that, we'll mentally start playing him off the stage and get underway to the next thing on our day. And enough of doing that. And we shouldn't be surprised that we're finding ourselves growing crusty and angry, growing in fear and cynicism. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, especially with our God. And humbly remind yourself of what Jesus said and did. But you can't remind yourself of what Jesus said and did if you don't know what Jesus said and did. So, real practically here, church. After you leave here, if you walk out these doors and you get in your car and you go, after you've heard the sermon, after you go back to your neighborhood and your alarm clock goes off on Monday morning, or even students, as your alarm clock goes off on Monday morning, you go off to the gym or go off to school, go off to whatever it may be. What difference does Jesus make in your life there? What difference does Jesus make in your day-to-day life in this world? This is what our world is asking. This is what non-Christians want to know. And they're seeing fractures. Listen, we can't expect to see Jesus move in this church. We can't expect to see Jesus move in our community, right here in Turner, if we can't even be honest with ourselves to start. So when that alarm sounds tomorrow morning, what difference does Jesus really make in how you respond to people, and how you interact, and how you live your life? James says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, humbly remind yourself of what Jesus said and did. So the church is the model for what God is building with his kingdom. This place right here should be the most like heaven on earth. Do you realize that? I don't mean the building, but this gathering of Jesus people. So what are those around us learning from us? What are those in our midst that don't follow Jesus? What are they learning from us? What is Turner learning from us? Are they getting a fractured picture of Jesus, or are they seeing an imperfect people just like them on a journey toward wholeness? That's what I'll leave you with today. It's a question that you have to answer. Let me pray for us. God, Jesus was our example. Thank you that he came and lived this life that we couldn't live, died the death that we should have died, to give us new life, give us hope. We don't have to be hopeless people in a world that doesn't have hope. We can be hope-filled people. I got to ask that you just reorient our minds to that. That as we go from here, and even as we're sitting right now, our minds are starting to drift. We're thinking about lunch. We're thinking about the game. We're thinking about where we're going to go. We're thinking about, is he ever going to stop praying? Is he ever going to stop speaking? God, this is what's happening in our heads right now. We're starting to play you off already. Keep us here. Keep us present. And in those moments, help us be honest with ourselves. We can't expect any honesty from other people if we can't start with ourselves. So help us, God, be a people that sit down, learn how your son responded, how he was gentle, so we can then begin to apply those things to our lives. And look internally and say, am I quick to listen? Am I slow to speak? Where am I at? God, help us be honest with ourselves this morning. We love you. It's in your son's name we pray.